The shroud completely inspires those who believe in it because we have to remember, Jesus left no physical trace of himself on earth. He wrote nothing. There's no archaeological evidence, actually, that he existed.
I think we can be certain that this is the burial wrapping of Jesus.
It's a pretty obvious fake.
For hundreds of years, the Shroud of Turin has left scientists, theologians, and skeptics completely stumped. But now, new evidence has come to light, evidence so bizarre, so beyond explanation, that some are beginning to wonder, could it actually be extraterrestrial? In today's video, Dr. John Campbell dives into the newest discoveries surrounding the Shroud, and what he uncovers might just upend everything you thought you knew about history, science, and maybe even life beyond Earth. The Shroud of Turin is a centuries-old relic bearing the faint but unmistakable image of a man. Over the years, it's been damaged, most notably in a devastating fire that left burn marks. But its secrets, imprinted across its 14-foot length, remain intact. To this day, scholars and skeptics continue to study it, not just for what it appears to show, but for what it might actually mean, not just because of its age, but because of a captivating theory that the shroud might actually be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. It has continued to spark debate. Dr. John Campbell explained how the influential Protestant reformer John Calvin dismissed the shroud as a hoax centuries ago. Calvin's harsh critique led many Protestant groups to disregard the relic entirely, leaving it largely forgotten outside of Catholic communities. Dr. Campbell challenged this dismissal, likening it to throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Just because many medieval relics were scams designed to make money, he argued, doesn't mean the shroud should automatically be lumped in with them. It might actually be the real thing. He then turned to a pivotal scientific investigation from 1978. A photographer named Vernon Miller captured a mysterious image of the shroud, one that revealed remarkably clear details. The shape of the head, the eyes, the nose, the lips, even traces of what looked like blood. Scientists later confirmed that these stains were human blood, and the wounds they matched, scalp punctures and facial injuries, closely resembled what you'd expect from someone tortured and crowned with thorns. But here's the truly strange part. How did this image even appear on the cloth? That's the real mystery. Dr. Campbell described it as a photographic negative, somehow imprinted on linen, a material that isn't even photosensitive. In other words, it's something that shouldn't even be possible, especially in the time period it's from. The mystery deepened even more in 1898, when a French photographer named Secondo Pia took the first ever photograph of the shroud. To everyone's astonishment, a clear positive image of a man's face emerged from the negative, bringing previously hidden features to life. This haunting revelation reignited fascination with the shroud. Dr. Campbell even drew a connection to ancient prophecy, referencing the book of Isaiah, which describes a figure so disfigured he no longer looked human. That description eerily mirrors the bruised and beaten figure now visible on the cloth. And the most baffling part? The image is still there, somehow burned into the fabric, not painted, not drawn, just there. One of the most fascinating discoveries about the Shroud of Turin came in 1978, when NASA's 3D imaging technology revealed something incredible. Embedded within the cloth was three-dimensional data. This analysis brought the features of the man's body and face into sharp focus, adding another layer to the mystery. It wasn't just a flat image, it had depth. This astonishing detail connected modern science with ancient scripture. Like the biblical account of Joseph of Arimathea wrapping Jesus in a linen cloth, the shroud shows both the front and back of a man's body wrapped in cloth. Clear marks of whipping are visible, along with blood stains that align with the wounds of a crown of thorns. And tests confirm the blood is indeed human. Even after suffering significant damage in a fire in 1590, the image on the cloth including the encoded negative image and the 3D data, remains intact. What's even more remarkable is the anatomical accuracy. The body shows signs of nail wounds through the wrists, consistent with Roman crucifixion practices. The level of detail is so precise that some have called the shroud the most studied artifact in human history. Despite the agony it portrays, it continues to captivate researchers and believers alike. A closer look reveals a man scourged, stripped, and executed exactly as Roman law would have dictated. His shoulders are bruised, likely from carrying a heavy beam. The scourge marks and the injuries from a crown of thorns are painfully clear. And somehow, the 1590 fire didn't erase the haunting image. What remains is a vivid look at a young, physically fit man in his final moments. High-definition photography allows us to see every mark and wound in stunning detail, bringing the story of the shroud to life in a deeply personal way. The man's face appears swollen, his nose looks broken, and part of his beard has been ripped out, just as Isaiah's prophecy described, "I gave my back to those who strike, and my cheeks to those who pull out the beard." There are also signs of blows to the head, bruising on the knees likely from repeated falls, and deep scourging wounds. The man shows signs of carrying a cross, much like Jesus in the Gospels, who struggled under its weight with Simon of Cyrene's help. One of the most striking features is the oval wound on the right side, consistent with the Roman method of confirming death by piercing the side with a spear. The image even suggests a flow of blood and water, echoing the gospel account of what happened when Jesus' side was pierced. This detail is no coincidence. Roman soldiers were highly trained to ensure death was certain, and the shroud captures that exact moment frozen in time. Each mark, each wound, tells a story, a chapter in a greater narrative of pain, sacrifice, and mystery. The shroud doesn't just hold an image, it holds an echo of the past, possibly one of the most profound moments in human history. Now let's shift our focus to the shroud's fabric, the linen itself. During the 1978 investigation, researchers captured a 35mm color image of the cloth that revealed its plain weave pattern in striking detail. In the photo, you can even see faint yellow fibers just above the cloth's surface. What's remarkable is how superficial the image is. It only affects the outermost layer of the fibers, which are astonishingly thin, about 2 to 5 micrometers thick. To this day, we still don't know how the image got there. The 1978 Shroud of Turin research project team expected to find brushstrokes or signs of pigment, something to suggest it had been painted. But instead they found an incredibly realistic and anatomically accurate image, complete with visible signs of torture and execution. No paint, no dyes, no artistic technique, just a hauntingly detailed human form. So how could such an image be created with such precision without any tools or artistic methods? That's the mystery. Attempts to recreate the shroud using modern technology, even high-powered lasers, have failed. Scientists discovered that only the very surface of the fibers were discolored. Dip those fibers just beneath the surface, and they turn white again. This faint discoloration is what forms the image, something that has never been successfully replicated. This supports the idea that the shroud may be authentic, casting serious doubt on claims that it's just a clever medieval forgery. One of the most intriguing details lies in the chest wound. When viewed up close, there's a faint halo effect around the blood, a sign of serum separation, something that naturally happens when blood dries. And unlike ordinary blood, which turns brown over time, this blood has stayed red. Why? Scientists believe it's because of a high concentration of bilirubin, a substance that's released into the bloodstream during extreme trauma. The blood also contains hemoglobin, human albumin, and human-specific antigens, providing strong evidence that it is, without a doubt, real human blood. While it hasn't been confirmed, some researchers believe the blood type may be AB, a rare type often associated with universal plasma donors. Another astonishing feature of the shroud is its ability to encode three-dimensional information from both the front and back of the body. Using this data, scientists have built 3D models that perfectly match the body's shape, posture, and features. The image shows a body caught in its final moments, frozen in time by rigor mortis. The arms are lowered, but the legs appear slumped and bent, likely due to the weight of the body resting on the nail driven through the feet. There's even a raised area behind the head that looks like a pillow, but it's not. It's the head, stiffened in place while still on the cross. This posture is encoded in the shroud with shocking anatomical accuracy, capturing the brutal physical reality of a crucifixion. Back in 1978, scientists ran extensive tests to determine whether the shroud was painted. The results were clear: no pigments, no dyes, no stains. Microchemical and X-ray fluorescent studies found no evidence of paint or artistic materials. Ultraviolet and infrared scans, along with computer-enhanced imaging from the VPA analyzer, confirmed the presence of true 3D spatial data encoded in the cloth. Even more surprising, there was no trace of oils, spices, or burial chemicals often used in ancient funerary practices. Everything about the shroud defies explanation. It's not just a relic, it's a riddle woven in linen, capturing the final agonizing moments of a man whose suffering mirrors the biblical accounts of Jesus in nearly every detail. One of the most enduring mysteries of the Shroud of Turin is the nature of the image itself. How exactly was it formed? Was it created during life, or did it somehow appear after death? What we know is this: the image was not created by any substances naturally emitted from the body, no oils, no bodily fluids, and no known biological materials. Yet despite this, there is compelling evidence that the shroud did come into direct physical contact with a human body. This physical contact helps explain some of the impressions on the torso, especially where there are clear outlines of wounds and anatomical features. But it does not explain the most striking part of all, the astonishingly detailed image of the face. Over and over, photography has captured this image with extraordinary clarity. Whether through traditional photographs or digital scans, the facial features, the nose, eyes, lips, beard, and even bruises, emerge with haunting precision. And here's the most baffling part. Despite decades of rigorous attempts, no one has been able to reproduce this image using any known method. Scientists have experimented with old linen, mimicking conditions from the Middle Ages and ancient times. They've tried chemical processes, heat, radiation, contact methods, and even advanced imaging technologies. But all have failed to replicate the unique and delicate qualities of the shroud's image. Its formation cannot be fully explained by any known physical, chemical, biological, or medical process. Even with the advancements we've made in science by the year 2024, theories abound. But one continues to stand out among researchers: the possibility that the image was formed by a sudden, intense burst of energy, perhaps radiation or light, at a moment in time when the body was no longer alive but still present. Some suggest this burst may have been brief, yet powerful enough to sear the image onto the uppermost fibers of the linen without burning through the cloth itself. But even this theory doesn't offer a complete explanation. What makes the shroud so compelling is that the mystery doesn't weaken with time, it deepens. Each new test, each new analysis, only adds layers of intrigue. Despite the best efforts of physicists, chemists, biologists, and historians, no definitive answer has emerged. The shroud defies classification, slipping through the fingers of science like smoke through a net. And yet, what we can say with certainty is this: the image is of a real man, a man who suffered deeply. The markings on the body align precisely with what we know of Roman crucifixion: wounds from a whip, blood from a crown of thorns, nails through the wrists and feet, and a deep gash in the side. This wasn't an artistic interpretation or symbolic design. It was real. It was specific. It was personal. This man, whoever he was scourged and crucified with brutal accuracy. His image was somehow preserved on a fragile piece of linen in a way that no other artifact in history has ever managed. And that's the heart of the mystery. How did this extraordinary image form? We're left with more questions than answers, but one thing is undeniable. The Shroud of Turin continues to captivate scientists, theologians, historians, and seekers from all walks of life. It stands as a silent witness to an event lost in time, an enigma woven into linen, and a challenge to our understanding of what is possible. Yet, despite all our advancements in science and technology, how the image on the Shroud of Turin was actually formed remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of history, just as puzzling today as it was decades or even centuries ago. The Shroud continues to stir debate, fascination, and awe. For many, the mystery seemed to be settled back in 1988, when radiocarbon dating tests dated the cloth to somewhere between 1260 and 1390 AD. That conclusion led many to believe the Shroud was a clever medieval forgery, not an authentic relic from the time of Christ. But over time, that certainty began to fade. In 1988, radiocarbon dating suggested the Shroud of Turin was from the Middle Ages. But later studies uncovered a major flaw. The tested fabric came from a section likely repaired after a fire, mixing modern threads with ancient linen and skewing the results. Newer dating methods and textile analysis now point to a first-century origin, aligning the Shroud with the time of Jesus. Its weave matches ancient cloths found in places like Masada, Israel. The image itself is even more mysterious. It shows a man brutally scourged, crucified, and crowned with thorns. Medical experts confirm the wounds are anatomically accurate, consistent with Roman execution methods, details no medieval artist could have known. What's more, the image contains 3D information and functions as a photographic negative, technologies far beyond anything from the medieval era. Scientists still can't explain how it was made. Whether divine, natural, or unknown, the Shroud of Turin continues to challenge science, stir faith, and remain one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time.